to have join me tonight. So we're going to discuss some millionaire habits and traits, and maybe you'll learn something, maybe give you some insight, but I'm sure you'll benefit. Again, Marlon is an Iowa farm boy who became a multimillionaire. He grew up on a large farm and became the fourth generation to operate the cropland side of his farm. He understood about the farming, but he didn't understand about all the banking and the politics and how that play in to keep the operation going. And when you have to go to the banks to borrow money and trying to get it, and there's issues with them and this. Anyway, he got a little frustrated and he decided he was going to learn how to do this. So after 35 years, he has studied wealth principles. He knows it inside and out. He's an investor, a speaker, a mentor. He has a training group called the Wealth Wise. He's done insurance, real estate. He's done all kinds of things. He wants to teach you how to leave a legacy for generations to come. And he's even done some Marlon. So, he can strike a pose like me. So, I like somebody can strike a pose. So let's give a warm welcome for Marlon. Hello, Marlon.
Hey.
Welcome to Gallivanting Like a Royal. Thank you for joining me.
Glad to be here. Oh, no, that's great. I just noticed your quote that you had at the beginning. It says the goal is to die with memories, not dreams.
That's
I love
true.
that. So many people, I say you don't want to die with regrets.
No, you don't.
Yeah, I love that.
Well, Marlon, I gave you a little brief introduction, but would you tell my royal listeners and viewers a little bit more about you?
Sure. Yeah, so like you said, I was fourth generation farmer. And what was unique about that is I got to work with both my grandfather on my mom's side and my dad, and both of them had different approaches to life. So my grandfather had grown up during the Depression. So he was all about don't borrow money because he saw what happened when they lost one of their farms and all that stuff. My dad, on the other hand, was always borrowing money because that was just how he operated. And so I saw both sides of it. What was interesting was the borrowing money has helped us get ahead. But when we hit a crisis, and it was more of a banking crisis during a farming period, it wasn't us that was in trouble. And I didn't understand that initially because I can still remember that just like yesterday. My dad and I on one side of the desk, my loan officer on the other side of the desk, and he told us, we didn't have the land mortgage. We just had all the machinery and we had a lot of livestock. And they wanted us to mortgage the land for it to renew the note. And I remember thinking, well, does that make sense? Because our note's actually less than it was last year and they didn't require that. And they wouldn't tell us why. They just said that's how it is. Mm-hmm. Long story short, we didn't do that. We eventually paid off all those loans. But the thing was, I found out later, their balance sheets were bad. They wanted our land on their balance sheets. That's the only reason they did that. So from that point on, two things happened. I don't like banks, and I'll use them, but I don't like them. And the other thing is, I didn't understand money. I understood how to raise crops and all that kind of stuff and how to market, but I didn't understand what does the government do? What does the Federal Reserve do? What does the banking institutions do that control me and my future? And if you're not following that sort of in line with what's going on with them and not just the talk, because there's the talk of we're doing this, but underneath they're doing this. So you really have to stay in touch so you know what's going on so you can predict. And I'll give you an example. In 2006 through 2008, when everything started crumbling, and then they came out with, they called it Bernanke helicopter money. They started dropping money. Where did the money go? The money primarily went to the banks. What did the banks do with money? They shored up the banks.
Yes.
It didn't circulate because some of my guys were saying, 18 months of printing money, you'll see inflation. We never saw inflation. But in 2020, when everything got shut down, where did they send the money? The banks were fine. They sent it to businesses and people. Like my boys got, their checks. They didn't need it. What did they do with it? They threw it in the stock market. A lot of people threw it in the stock market. A lot of people bought TVs with theirs. I remember they were saying there was a run on TVs, and you couldn't buy them. You know, so which kind of goes back to the poor buy stuff like consumer goods. The middle class, they'll go into stocks and stuff like that. The wealthy, they take that money and they invested it. So a lot of my business friends, I mean, they got $100,000 to $500,000 in almost free money, and they just stuck it in their right pocket and then used the left pocket to do what they needed to. And the right pocket, they were required to do certain things, so they used that money as required, but that gave them money on their left pocket to do other things. But the point of all this is that when that was happening and the money was going to the people, that's when the money circulates. So the more dollars that circulates is what causes inflation. Because if you have more dollars for less goods, you're going to, people, just like houses, people are paying so much more for a house just because there weren't that many and they had the money, or they had the ability to borrow the money. And that's what causes inflation. That's why we saw inflation. So in 2020, when I saw this happening, I was telling my friends, buy real estate, buy commodities, buy anything that's a tangible asset like that that's going to go up in value. And so that's what we're doing. We're borrowing as much money as we could at super low interest rates, buying apartments, hotels, condominiums, all that kind of stuff. And it's played out really well.
Well, people is always going to need homes too. So when you invest in real estate, that's kind of a safe investment, don't you think?
Well, there's actually a study, I forget how many million of homes, we call them doors, that aren't available yet. And it all really started from 2006 when the economy started downturning. A lot of real estate developers went out of business. And a lot of them, even today, they aren't up to the production that they were. Some of it has to do with labor, some with other reasons. So, one, there hasn't kept up with what they should have in producing homes. The second thing is you look at who's buying homes. Right now, you've got the millennials that are coming into what we call maturity. There's actually studies out there on, at a typical age of 25, you get married, 30, you buy your first home, 45, you buy your second home, all that kind of thing. When you have kids, I mean, it's demographics is a big deal.
Right.
But for the millennials, they're actually more later in getting married and buying their first home. But the other problem that millennials have that other generations may not have is the cost of college. College has gotten so expensive. Some of them are coming out of college with loan payments that are as much as most of us had for house payments. So they're trying to pay off their student loans before they even buy a house. So that's delayed a lot of them in doing that. It's a crazy deal.
It is, because it kind of shifts the way you were raised. You're raised like go to college, you get out, you have, make a good salary. Well, if all your college loans are taking so much of that salary, then you're not really benefiting much.
Right.
And like you said, the money's not rolling into the economy as it should be, where they're having more to spend on goods and buy things to keep it rolling.
Yeah, it's I look at like my sons, they're basically millennials, and I look at the cost of goods, like even furniture and all the things they need to be. So they buy a house, they're paying twice as much for that house as I am. And yes, they're maybe making more money than I was when I bought my house. But you look at the total cost. When you buy a house at $150,000 versus $300,000, even at the same interest rate, but you look at the total interest that you pay, it's not so much the interest rate as the total interest. And so on a $300,000 house, the total interest is going to be significantly more. So they're going to spend more dollars to have the same thing that I got.
And like I say, it makes, I guess, life a little tougher on a lot of people, and just especially young people. It changes their mindset.
But the thing about young, you know, it's really about understanding dollars. I mean, I have some young friends that are in their 20s that are making superior money deals. Take, for instance, even podcasters that have affiliates or doing speaking engagements or coaching programs. I mean, some of them are making, 5-figure monthly incomes with that, high 5 figures monthly incomes even. And so they're pretty, it's a matter of who you're listening to and what are you doing. Like for most of us older ones, we were taught, even when I was on the farm, my mother used to always say, oh, she used to work for AT&T company when she was in her 20s. And she saw her boss had retired. He had a defined benefit plan, paid him out forever. He was traveling over. She's like, you should go to college, get a job like that, and then you have life made. So, that was, but I'm like, but I didn't want a job. I wanted my freedom. And that's what I saw in farming. So I went back to farm. But that's what most people were taught. But the thing is, you're taught to, get that job, get a 401k, turn that money over to a money professional. And then after 4 years, you'll have something when you retire. The problem with that is a lot of my friends that are that retirement age, the stock market's dropping. We're having high inflation. It's not working out so well for them because they're now living and heading to a fixed budget with a fixed finite income stream. So what I teach people, it's not about having so much wealth in like dollars in a pot, I call it. It's about cash flow. So if you have $9,500 worth of expenses and you're making $10,000 a month, technically you're financially free.
Yeah, like I said, you have to manage your money and make it work for you. Marlon, what would you say some of the habits of millionaires are? We were going to, discuss about this because I read that, millionaires have some different traits than most of us.
Well, I think the biggest thing is when you look at a poor person and you walk into their house, they're going to have big screen TVs. There's going to be lots of doodads, I call them, consumer goods, big stereos, all that kind of stuff. Now you walk into what I call a middle class home, they will actually maybe even have a bookshelf or something like that, and they're doing some trainings and stuff like that. You walk into a wealthy person's home, they probably have a library, and because they're studying and reading, they're going to seminars. That's one of the biggest things. Most of the guys that are my wealthy friends, they're going to seminars and trainings all the time. They're making connections. They're learning what's the next big deals. They're learning about themselves. They're learning how to become better leaders. They're learning how to become better salesmen. They're learning how to become better investors. That's where they spend their time and money and energy.
Because I was reading 7 things millionaires do differently from everyone else. This comes from the Business Insider website. It says they're frugal. They keep their housing costs low. They save a lot of their income. In other words, they take that income to use it to make more money. They don't have a budget because they've already acquired that mindset and that ability to manage their money. They don't need to budget anymore. They take on side hustles. They invest in real estate. They invest in low-cost index funds. And like you said, they spend more time studying and planning for their investments, and they put energy towards personal growth activities versus watching TV or, doing stuff like that. Do you agree with some of that?
8 out of 10. So I wouldn't say they live frugal. because, some are driving Ferraris and Porsches and stuff like that.
That's true.
But how they buy them and how they use them. So some of the guys use them as a tax write-off in the sense that it's part of their advertisement of their business or how they're doing, in their promos and stuff like that. So, and the last couple of years, the used car market has been so incredible that some of these guys, they bought a Porsche at $150,000 brand new. 3 years later, it's worth $170,000. It's actually, and sometimes it's worth more than the newer ones. So they haven't really lost money. They drove it for a while and then they sell it, and they don't have, and they wrote it off. So, and the other thing is, I wouldn't say they do index funds, because most of my guys, they don't even invest in the stock market. So we invest in private equities. Like, we have companies, like one of them I invested in, it's a securities company, meaning the IT security.
Right.
And the way they're doing it, they got Kevin Harrington, he's part of the Shark Tank. He's on the board. There's some key players I know of that are on the board. They're all part of this mastermind group I belong to. And we know where that company's going. So SKUX is another one that was kind of created out of that. And so there's some major plays. The other one is, so another guy in there, he actually gets stocks that are owned by employees, and they can buy those at a discount.
Oh, I didn't know.
You're still own the stock before it really is taken off, but you're buying it at a discount. So there's a lot of different ways that when you say we invest, it's different than the stock market, because the stock market is really gambling. There's no guarantees. Some of them do day trading. They're in like 20 minutes and out, and they pull in there. Yeah, they'll make $4,000 or $5,000, $6,000, $300 to $6,000, whatever they are, and they play, and then they're done and they're out. Otherwise, most of them, it's real estate, it's businesses, it's notes, it's even one of the guys I just got involved with is we're buying lots, quarter-acre lots, and sitting on them for a little bit. It's all in Roth money. Never paid tax on it. He started with $500 in his Roth, and today he has millions and millions in his Roth, just doing land deals and flips.
And I say people need to learn, like I say, those tax deductions, because instead of giving all your money to Uncle Sam, you have money back in your pocket, like you said, to buy a lot or buy something that you can use to make money later.
Yeah, that's really the key. I mean, people don't think about if you're paying almost 50% of your money towards taxes. And this is something I always think about. So like for me as a business owner, even when I was farming, when I bought something, it was a deduction. So if I go to buy a step ladder, I need a step ladder for the farm. I'd probably use it in my house too, but I used it for rental properties, whatever I used it for. It was a deduction. But you take somebody who's just a plain W-2, no businesses, and he goes to buy a step ladder, it's an expense. So I just wrote it off, reduces my taxes, where he still has to pay the dollars that he worked for, reduced by taxes. So if half his money's gone before he even starts, versus I have 100% of my money at the beginning. Think of it this way. So I have $100 to spend. I can spend it, the whole $100, as a business owner. And then what's left over that I haven't expensed, I'll pay tax on it if there's anything left over. Usually not a lot, if any. Now you take somebody that works for an employer, and he's an employee and he makes $100, a third of it, at least minimum, is pulled out just for federal taxes. And then you got all these other things that can be pulled out, fees. And so he's only starting with, say, let's just do the simple 30%. So he's only $70 out of the 100.
Right.
And then he goes to buy things like step ladders. I just reduced my taxes buying a step ladder. He bought a step ladder. It didn't make any difference. It's just a cost. And so he's going to get, he just, it's not a simple equal ground. So business owners, any kind of business, that you can get deductions, you're always going to be further ahead and grow faster than somebody who doesn't have a business.
And that's what I think too, that people with money, successful people, they know these, I wouldn't call them tricks. These are, things that you learn from your tax accounts and stuff to do. But if you have a job making money, why not start a second business in your spare time and use that as your expenditure so you can keep more of your money? Because until you're using your money to make more money, which helps everybody out. Because if you think about the triple effect of $1, if you spend $1 in your community, that ripples down and affects so many other people. I think it's like 8 times $1 multiplies. And so instead of giving all that money for our tax dollars, who knows what our politicians do with it, keep more money in your pocket that you can control.
Right. I always say I can use my dollars better than they can use my dollars. And so my goal is never to give them my dollars so that they waste it. And you and I have both worked for the government, and we've seen the waste that goes on and the thought process that goes on, because they're not concerned about making a profit. They're just concerned about spending money. So I just totally agree with that.
And several more things I found.
Go ahead.
I'll let you think about that. Maybe this will trigger your thought process. It says millionaires sleep less, work more, they think more, they don't follow the crowd. In other words, they're not worried about what the Joneses buy next door. They don't try to keep up with them. They're always asking for feedback to gain more information. They're resilient and they persevere. They prioritize 4 main relationships that surround them to support them, to have them grow. And they're more conscious of what's happening in the world.
So the second to last was they have 4 main what?
4 main relationships that surround them to give them their strategy, that they bounce ideas off, that that how you get that vibration and that everybody, that same mind works together. They have
one of the guys that I know, he's probably a billionaire, but he calls it he actually uses the number 6. So he gets 6 people that he focuses on that not only help him, but he can help them. And he calls it a circle of 6. But then he I don't want to say the word requires, but he pretty much highly encourages for them to pick out 6 people that will be in their circle and that they can help each other, influence each other. And so it's kind of a ripple effect. So I thought that was interesting. They use 4, but yeah, you kind of want to surround yourself with the right people. So one of my thoughts, or one of my sayings, I should say, is, your network is your net worth. And a lot of that has to do with who you're hanging around with. So if I walk into the room and if I'm the smartest one in the room, I always say I'm in the wrong room. I want to be in a room where I don't feel too smart, because you get a whole bunch of guys, and I'm in some of those rooms where, these guys are huge in the business world. But they come in these rooms and they go, man, I feel like the dumbest one in the room. And I'm thinking, well, that's what I feel like. Everyone feels that way. But those are the rooms you want to be in.
Well, it's like this. My strength may be your weakness, and your weakness my strength. So if we help each other, and again, this goes back to what I'm saying about being generous, people, is when you help other people, that giving spirit, you all gain, because, you learn something, and let's say it's my strength. I make my strength better. I hone in on what someone else needs to learn, and I'll gain something from teaching someone else that I may not have known, but you like the light bulbs go off, and you got thinking, oh, if I show this person this, how can I do it better? And then you discuss it. You both might find a way to do it even better.
There's something else I want to mention, because a lot of people go, I don't know where to even start to make money. But the easiest way to make money is through affiliations. And what I mean by that is there's a lot of people out there that have programs and they have affiliate links. So I've learned the last few years, I'm a great connector. Like last week, I was asked at my mastermind group. It's a lot of millionaires and billionaires, and they're doing their thing, and then I'm like, I need to hook you up with so and so. And so when I got back, I was just texting all day, all these different people, texting them together, making the connections, because I would see the synergy that if this person tied with this person, what this guy knew or what that guy did or whatever, they could create even a better system or business or help each other or connections that can grow their businesses, so forth. But a lot of times those businesses have affiliate links, which, so like my backdrop is Philanthro Investors. I'm an ambassador for them. They're a great program for creating wealth. They have multiple different business models within, all towards philanthropic stuff. One of them is called Equity and Help. They will scour thousands of homes, pick out maybe 500 of them, sell them at investors at a really low cost because they get them at a low cost. And then the investor sells those homes to people that can't normally buy homes. And then they're in charge of fixing up the house, which creates equity in the house. It's a win-win-win situation. It's a win for Philanthro investors because they're helping people and they make a little profit up front. The investor makes a little profit by being the bank, helping out the homeowner, and the homeowner is now getting into a home that's usually cheaper than what they were renting, and they're building equity.
That's true.
It's a win-win-win situation. But because of my, I'm part of their ambassador group, I get paid to sending people there looking for investment deals. How do you find those kind of investment deals? The investment deals I know of, I spend a lot of money to be around these people. We all spend a lot of money in the people I hang around with, going to different groups, going to different mastermind groups, making those connections, being around those people. It pays. It pays us in high dividends on what we learn and what we do. And so the average person that I talk to doesn't have that ability. And all they learn is from a broker saying, invest for the long term, hold it forever. It'll be there. Even though it goes down, it'll come back. The only reason they say all that is because they make money whether you make money or not.
That is true.
And so there's no guarantee. One of the things I also teach is using life insurance. I use it's a whole life, but it's modified. We actually add term up front. And so we are literally pushing money into the cash value. That's my banking system today. And then by doing that, I can borrow against that money. It's still making money in the insurance company, but I borrow against it and I go into real estate deals, stuff like that, where I'm making double-digit returns. So I'm making money twice with the same dollars. And sometimes when the investment comes back, like some of our investment real estate deals, we refinance it 2 to 3 years, I get those dollars back. I go reinvest them. Some of those dollars, I got some coming in just now. I reinvest it. It'll be working 3 times, same dollars in a little over a 2-year period.
That is great.
That's called money velocity.
Yeah.
You think about what the banks do. When you put $1 in the bank, that dollar doesn't sit there. It goes out sometimes 10 times through loans. So they're paying you 0.25% interest, but they're taking that dollar that they pay you 1 cent on, and they take that dollar and multiply it out 10 times at, say, 6-7% on school or car loans, home loans, stuff like that.